So we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we're talking about the human side of performance, coaching feedback and conversations that actually change human behavior. I'm accompanied by Sara Bordeaux. Sara, thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll go ahead and do introductions in just a moment. But before we do that, just a quick disclaimer as always, anything that we talk about today isn't considered legal advice, so any decisions that you make or choose not to make shouldn't be based on our webinar content. You should engage with an attorney. I hate that I have to do that actually, but it's important.
Yes.
So, our agenda for today, we'll do some quick introductions, and then there are a few key themes that we're going to be focused on that you can see here. Addressing personal needs, becoming better communicators, learning the Grow coaching model, all that great stuff. So, we will chat about each one, and Sara and I will take turns a little bit in the process. So, a little bit about me. I'm the CEO and founder of VirgilHR. VirgilHR is a compliance technology for employment and labor law. And I'm sure many of you on this call are already using our tool. Thank you so much. My background is in human resources. I've been in HR my whole career. My last job before starting Virgil, I was a VP of HR for a large technology company and oversaw their North America HR operations. Kind of saw a need in this space along the way as we were growing and hiring in multiple states and started Virgil about 4 years ago. So I will hand it off to Sara.
Hello, I am Sara Bordeaux. I own Purposed HR, which is an HR leadership and culture consultancy. So, in the HR vein, I also work within process and policy. I do a lot with leadership workshops and culture reviews. The information for today with coaching conversations is something that is near and dear to my heart because leadership or conversations are the foundation of leadership. So thank you, Jocelyn and Virgil HR, for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Sara. Okay, so we'll jump straight into it. And the first thing is talking about what a leader is. And I'm sure many of you on this call have a pretty good idea of what a leader is in the workplace. They're here to inspire others. It goes beyond just engaging their employees, it's inspiring their employees, motivating them, and encouraging them to achieve their goals. They're also guiding their team and they're building trust as well. Something that's really important for for a leader to achieve is, always acting with integrity and creating an environment where employees feel like there's good, healthy psychological safety. So, at the end of the day, if we were to kind of summarize it into one sentence, it'd be that leaders are influencing a group of people toward a common goal. So, coaching is really the topic of the conversation today. What is coaching? So, coaching is this ongoing, real time development process that really empowers employees to unlock and maximize their full potential. There are a few things that are pretty important to know about coaching. The first is that it's there, but really, it's leveraged to help others work on their strengths and take advantage of their strengths. Core coaching behaviors are active listening, powerful open-ended questions, non-judgmental presence, and the belief in the employee's capability. So, what is coaching not? So, coaching doesn't really include giving advice or displaying your expertise. That's not what you're there to do. What you're there to do is really help the employee by guiding them in discussions so that they self-realize on their own. It's not a performance review, it's not disciplinary action. Coaching is really what happens before disciplinary action ever occurs, nor is it an update meeting. There's a big difference in coaching, management, and mentoring. So when you're managing, it's directing, evaluating performance, making decisions. When you're mentoring, that's sharing experience and advice. When you're coaching, that's helping someone think, reflect, and find their own solutions. So when should we coach? The first thing is coaching for success. So Anytime there's a new something, a new role, a new project, a new relationship, a new problem to solve, that's when you want to be coaching, really taking advantage of those conversations where they're open-ended. And again, you're guiding people through that process so that they're maximizing their full potential. If after you've kind of gone through this process and there's still some things that need to be tweaked, maybe falling short of expectations or experiencing difficulty in a project, this is where you would have kind of more of those conversations that really help them self-realize on the fact that they're having that difficulty to begin with and what type of solution they can put in place. And then, unfortunately, if coaching doesn't work, that's when we would start addressing poor performance. And this would be part of the disciplinary process. So, this is course correcting when someone is falling consistently below expectations. And there are a few things here that you should be doing as a leader. You should be seeking to understand. So, understanding their feelings, understanding the challenges that they might be having, understanding the barriers that need to be removed, and clarifying expectations with them as well. So, there are a lot of benefits to coaching. I mean, I think that goes without saying, but there are a few benefits here that we listed that we felt were really important to just kind of showcase. So, the first is autonomy. In coaching, what you're doing is you're providing autonomy to your employee because they are taking ownership rather than you taking ownership of their responsibilities. Engagement, and again, I said earlier, inspiration as well is really key. So, a great benefit is that engagement and inspiration that employees feel. And research really shows that employees of managers who are coaching really well are 40% more engaged, 20% more likely to stay with the company. So, a huge piece to retention. Skills. This is where we can help employees upskill and really uncover gaps that they might have by providing on time, real time feedback and support. Communication, I would argue that one of the benefits of coaching is that you are creating an environment where people feel like there's healthy psychological safety and that they're able to communicate not just between the manager and the employee, but between peers and everybody across the organization. Performance, of course, coaching helps employees perform. It helps them set goals, it helps them take action to improve their performance, and it helps them take accountability as well. And then relationships and attitudes. So when coaching builds trust and strengthens work relationships between managers and employees, that's where you have a really big win with coaching. And mindset matters. We have kind of two mindsets here. We have this fixed mindset where people believe that individuals are predispositioned to be a certain way and can't change or improve. That failure is an endpoint or a letdown, and that challenges actually demotivate. So, an example might be internally, someone might think, I didn't score in the game. I probably won't make the team next year. On the other hand, we have the growth mindset where people believe that individuals can change and improve, and that failures can in fact be a good thing, something to learn from and improve on. So really, growth mindset reframes failures. They recognize effort rather than outcome, and challenges are opportunities to learn, not demotivating. So that kind of example flipped around. I didn't score in the game. I'm going to practice hard over the summer so I can impress them next year. This is shifting from telling to asking. So the mindset shift from I need to fix this can instead be how can I help them think this through? And it goes from shifting from control to curiosity, from advice to inquiry. I am going to pass it off to Sara for this portion of the presentation. Sara, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn, so much. So when we come to a conversation, to a coaching conversation or any conversation, we have we bring personal needs. We bring our whole self to a conversation, and then we have the practical needs that the conversation needs to meet, right? And so it's really important as a leader that we make the person that we were meeting with, he'll feel heard, valued, and supported, right? We all want to be understood. We all want to be taken seriously. And so that's what these next items we're going to discuss address the personal needs of the conversation. And so we're going to dive into maintaining self-esteem, empathy, seeking involvement, sharing, and support. So on the next slide with maintaining esteem, this looks like um, really constructive statements rather than criticism, right? So it's praising them for their strengths, acknowledging their efforts over results whenever we can. And in order to maintain their esteem, there's some little tools that we can do. So it avoids the but or the however, and it's using the and or also and making a whole new sentence. So in this first example, your reports are always done well. It's important they also be submitted on time each month. So I've made my point very clear that I need your reports on time without saying, hey, your report was late again, right? And so it's a way that we can maintain someone's esteem and not sound so critical. Now, there might be a time, right? Jocelyn showed us how we need to coach early and often. There might be a time down the pipeline when we need to become more direct. But this is a way, again, to be constructive, not critical. So I've noticed that you've been arriving on time more consistently. I appreciate your timeliness rather than, oh, finally you are on time. And then I'm confident with your skills and a bit of additional support, you'll be back on track soon. So it's expressing confidence in someone who has maybe gotten off track a little bit. And this is how we maintain someone's self-esteem to make them feel valued. And next we have empathy. With empathy, it's really not sympathy. It's not agreeing with someone, but it is making them feel heard and understood. And so I think that honestly, it's the most important part of emotional intelligence and building relationships in the workplace is empathy. So there's an empathy formula that basically says it sounds like you feel blank emotion because of blank fact. It sounds like you're excited about the promotion. It sounds like, or I think I heard you say that you felt left out by the team when you weren't invited to the lunch. I understand you felt belittled by how your colleague spoke to you. So it's stating the emotion that you see or hear because of blank fact. And then you're going to get agreement from the person like, yeah, you're right. They're going to feel heard, understood, even if you're not agreeing with them. And so it helps kind of clear the way to move on to the practical part of the conversation. And so empathy looks a lot of ways, but this is one simple formula to remember. And empathy might even say, hey, I'm disappointed in this too, or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed as well, right? It's sometimes just making someone feel seen in all the little kind of ways and pointing out those emotions. So next is seeking involvement, and really this just gets to the heart of this is not a telling conversation. It's not directing. It's asking questions to unlock potential. It's clarifying situations. It's brainstorming to explore options. It's asking powerful questions to find out what support someone needs, what barriers could be removed. And so one of the best things that a leader can do is get really, really great at asking provocative questions. And then next we have share, which is, again, just a part of the two-way dialogue. I ask you how you're feeling about a new project, and then I tell you from my experience how I have felt, how I might be able to support or what data I might have to help you, right? So I ask the questions, and then I provide some sharing from my perspective as well. So again, just a two-way dialogue. And then next we have support. So with support, it is offering support in any kind of way that you can without removing the ultimate responsibility or taking over the task. So support can look like frequent check-ins. Support can look like, hey, let's meet to talk about this project every Friday for a half hour. Support can look like, let me connect you to this expert. Support can be like, let me enroll you in this class. There are all different ways to support, whether it's providing resources or just time. Um, but I think that when we just throw something new at someone without having the conversation and not finding out what they need, we just plan for their failure, right? So we have to have that element of support. So we've just heard like a lot of stuff, right? About, oh, we've got to coach early and often. We've got to make sure we're maintaining their esteem and not being critical. We've got to make sure we're asking questions and sharing and supporting. And it sounds like it could be a lot to really do well. The research shows that leaders need to be actively coaching their employees 8 to 10% of the time. So that's from Gardner, Gallup, DDI. It's all been confirmed that 8 to 10% of the time is how you should best use your coaching abilities as a leader in order to prevent challenges. And so we know there's production, there's inventory, there's safety, compliance, whatever type of industry, whatever your barriers are to time. At the end of the day, it's about 30 to 40 minutes a day. And so that could look like 2 quick coachings daily, 1 big coaching daily if you have a big team. If you have a really small team, that's going to be overkill, right? So you really have to find that balance, but just remember that the average person needs to be coached from their boss about 8% of the time. Slide, please. There we go. So Gardner shows that there are 4 dominant profiles of a manager. And one of those is teaching, like the kind of leader that says, let me sit down and do this with you. That's great. No problems with that. But it doesn't show that greatly increases engagement and retention. There's the cheerleader that is, giving you positive vibes and energy and support and telling you can do it, but there's no actual hands-on coaching support. And again, the research shows that's fine, but it's not doing anything to add to engagement and retention. The interesting thing is that the always on, the overcoacher, right, who is always giving feedback, maybe micromanaging, the research shows that this degrades performance by 8%. So if you are over coaching, over giving feedback, just constantly micromanaging, you could be degrading performance. And then lastly, Gardner calls the sweet spot the connector. That coaches 8 to 10% of the time with targeted conversations, and they don't give straight advice, but they're connecting you to support. Again, connecting you to the resources, the people, or the time that you need to be coached and developed. And so let's all be a connector. So we've heard a lot about now the personal needs, and now let's get into the practical. How do we practically coach someone if we're not a trained coach? And so I'd like to present to you this GROW model. It is a very simple model. I like it because if this is a word, it's Googleable. And you can find GROW examples out there on YouTube or Google or wherever. And so the GROW model is, to me, a wonderful template for just about any conversation or meeting. So it stands for goals, reality, options, and way. So from a high level, it's what's the goal of this conversation? What's the reality check? Where are we now and where do we want to be? What are the options to get us to point A to point B? Where could we be? And which way will we go? So when we open with the goal, that is, if the employee is coming to you, it's simply a question. What do you need to talk about? How can I help you? But if you are presenting something to the employee, maybe you want them to lead a new ERP implementation. We'll say, for example, it would be, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a new project. We hope to integrate a new ERP system. The goal of this project is to be fully implemented and ready by 6 months from now, for example. So I'm starting out the opening with the goal of the conversation. I would also like to say here, when we've done the early coaching and we're on down the line and we're having maybe a pivotal, important feedback conversation, that might be a difficult conversation. I know sometimes it can be really awkward to open. And so I like to open with gratitude. Thank you for coming to my office today, or thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for taking the time today. I need to talk about some difficult things. So that is my tip. When you have to open something difficult, open with gratitude. All right, so once you've expressed the goal of the conversation, we want to move to the reality piece. So what is currently going on? What's happened up to now? What has occurred? How are you feeling about it? What are the barriers? What have you done? So depending on what this is, maybe we're a month down in the ERP. Tell me about how it's going. Who's on the team? How have they been participating? What has gotten in the way? These would be the types of questions. So it's a lot of fact finding in the reality. And then you would again share what you know. And when you move to options, again, this is sort of the brainstorm. How do we get from A to B? How can we develop the options? So there's questions of who could help you? What could you do? Where could you get support? What could we do about this barrier? And it might just be simply, what else? What do you think? Right. And then again, once we've given the coachee some time to respond and clarify and um, and really think through what they could do, because this is really where we're going to unlock a lot of that potential. Then once we've asked all those questions, that's when we come back and we share. Here's what I think. Here's some ideas that I have. What do you think about this idea? Right. And again, it's a two-way dialogue. So we've stated the goal, we've clarified the current reality, we've developed our options, and then in the way forward, it's what will we do? So this is where you get agreement. This is the plan that we've decided on. You ask them maybe to summarize. Can you clarify for me what your takeaways are, for example? And then you want to close with some energy, right? You want to really express confidence and esteem here. I believe in you. I think you can do this. I think you're going to put together a great team. Whatever the case, you want to energize here. So again, the goal of the conversation, the current reality, the developing the options and selecting the way forward. And that is the GROW model. And again, I think this model is not just great for one-to-one. This could be a really great team meeting template. This is great for delegation. This is great for figuring out what is going off track when something is going off track. So I highly recommend diving into this model, really learning it, and then sharing it with your leaders in your workplace. And next slide. By the way, if you have any questions about the GROW model, you can please feel free to submit those questions in the chat.
Sarah,
So
I was going to ask you and then realized I was on mute. Where can people learn about the GROW model and how would you suggest they implement it in the workplace? Like, should they be conducting trainings with their managers or anything else to help implement it?
yeah, absolutely. I think that you should you could go onto YouTube and see conversations of how the grow model is used. Um, and of course, I train half day. I actually spend generally a half day training on the grow model in the workplace and teaching supervisors and managers how to use it. And a lot of trainers use the grow model as kind of a foundational coaching tool. So you can go on Google and YouTube and or schedule someone like me to come and teach it, but absolutely learn it, use it, and share it with your leaders. It's a great tool, and I love it because it's easy to remember. And it's just really about getting good at listening and asking questions. That's the main thing. Absolutely. Thank you for that question. And that leads me to powerful questions, right? So we want to be able to get really great at asking questions that clarify and that move people forward. And so I know for myself, sometimes I'll just go and have a conversation um, about a decision I'm trying to make with someone I'm close to, just because as I talk about it, it starts to get my wheels spinning, right? As I talk about a decision or something heavy, I start thinking about what I could do and or realizing I already know what to do. And so it's really important that we allow people to process information verbally. And I'm a big fan of DISC, if anyone knows what that is. So if you're like on the bottom of the DISC model, you're a C or an S, then you're kind of slower to process. Like myself, I'm over analytical. And so when someone asks me these questions, it's really helpful for me. And so as a leader, in these coaching conversations, we might challenge people sometimes or ask them open-ended questions that says, okay, that statement that you just said, is that an assumption or do we know that for sure? Is that a fact? How can we verify that and make sure that we feel confident in that? What would give us confidence? What's working? What's not working? Why do you think that is? These are all types of questions to help your coachee process verbally. And obviously, we want to always ask open-ended questions and not leading. So, and make them feel empowered. How can you influence this situation? What could we make happen next, or what could you make happen next? What assumptions could you be making? How might you begin? Again, things like who can help you and how do we address these barriers, right? And then short, succinct, and clear. What support do you need from me? What would success look like? So those are some question tips. Is ask questions that allow them to process. Make sure they're open ended. Make sure they're short, succinct, and clear, one at a time. And I think I might be digging into a future slide, but also be careful with why. Because if I just come back with why, it can feel it can feel a little off-putting if I just say, well, why? It can feel a little bit passive aggressive. So we need to be really careful with how we use why. It's not off limits, but we just need to be careful with how we use why. Instead of saying, well, why would you do that? What could that accomplish, for example? All right. And so I think one of the most important things when we are coaching someone, we've talked about the growth mindset and how we need to believe that they can grow and they can change. We also need to check our bias because we may have employees or people on our team or colleagues that we naturally gravitate to help and support and give them things because they're a pleasure to work with. We might have some that feel more difficult to us and we avoid, right? So we need to check our bias at the door and we need to make sure that we're giving our team equal coaching time. we can't always be coaching to the lowest performers. We can't always be coaching to the highest performers, right? Sometimes there's a proclivity to avoid that middle range. Those people that are just steady and perform well, and we don't have to give a ton of direction to. It's so important to coach them as well, equal time, because again, we're building relationships, we're building engagement, and we're impacting performance. And so we want to try as much as possible to give equal time and support. Another tip is you don't have to think about the next question that you're going to ask immediately. You can give yourself time to process because they're also processing. So be comfortable with the pause, take a breath, ask the questions slowly enough to give them that processing time. And this is, again, about the why. Just make sure that why doesn't sound aggressive or imply blame. Just be careful with how you use it. We ask one question at a time. We don't want to interrogate. We don't want to make somebody feel like they've just gone through a rigorous interview. And so I think it's a really great idea to sort of have your grow coaching planner with your notes. Make a note for the goal of conversation, the reality, what are some questions I'm going to ask, the options, what are some questions I'm going to ask, and have those notes going in so that you can say, all right, I know I need to ask these 3 questions. Don't go in with 20 questions. Remain egoless is so important. Again, we've got to believe that someone can grow. We've got to believe authentically that we are unlocking their potential, and not that we're the expert, not that we can solve all the problems. Because we wouldn't need our team if we could solve all the problems. Be aware of your tone. So we want to have an inviting tone if we're inviting someone to have a conversation with us. We don't want to, again, sound inauthentic. We don't want to sound that we have all the answers. And then sometimes we might be down the road in our coaching and we might be frustrated. We want to make the conversation as open as possible so we get the most out of it on both sides. And if you're unclear, again, ask more questions. The grow model doesn't have to be linear. So you can be developing the options or picking the way forward and then go back to the reality to ask the clarifying question. It doesn't have to be perfectly linear each time. If you're unclear, get the clarity that you need to provide the support that the employee needs. So something that is really really important about coaching is the more that we do it, the better that we get at it, and we're instilling those same coaching values into the employees that we're talking with. And I think it's really important to build a coaching culture within our teams and within the organization at large. And so I get asked sometimes when I'm training leaders on these different communication tools and coaching tools, well, if I start doing this all of a sudden, won't it be off-putting for my team? Won't they think it's weird? Will they feel like they're in trouble? And so why not just be open and transparent about it and let your team know, hey guys, I want to take a more active role in coaching you all. So then they know that this is new to you as well. And so I'm going to be scheduling, 20-minute biweekly meetings with the team or what have you. So just let it be known that you are trying to build your coaching expertise and the relationship with them, and that you are trying to offer more support to them. That way they can have grace for you and you can have grace for them. So again, though, with the coaching culture, as we disseminate this practice to other leaders and even our peers, we want to make sure that we're coaching for success first and often. Because when we've gotten down the line to coaching for performance, it turns into less seeking. It turns into more feedback that is direct and constructive, right? And so we want to practice first and often. And we just want our team to know, hey, this is for your growth and mine. We want to get great at asking those powerful questions, and we want to be intentional with that 8% of the time that we need to be coaching. And so we want to block out our coaching time on our calendar. So I would challenge you to go ahead and say, hey, Friday afternoons are for coaching, or whatever works for your calendar. Practice with peers. Peer coaching is so effective. I would love to see in the chat if you have ever been through a formal coaching. If anybody has been through a formal coaching and you're willing to share, I would love to see how many people have experienced that. Yeah, thank you. I know that when I've been through formal coaching, I've learned from that coach, right? And I walk away saying, all they did was ask me questions, but man, I feel like I can do this now. I feel like I just like got past this huge hurdle. Yeah. So a handful of you have been through formal coaching, and I highly recommend it. If you've never done it, I highly recommend it. It's so helpful to your personal performance and your personal mindset. Um, but yeah, and if you haven't, this is a great tool to use to start. So, in building a coaching culture, it helps us learn to remove the assumptions. It helps us remember to celebrate successes, and it encourages those around us to model it. And so that's what we want to do, is not just learn it, but take it all the way through the thread of our organization. So there's a lot of benefits, on the next slide, please, to a coaching culture in which we.
Sarah, sorry, really quickly, a question came through and it was relevant to this slide, so I figured I'd ask now. The question is, what defines a powerful question?
Thank you. Yeah. I think that, again, it is something that is open-ended, but helps someone get clarity and helps them move forward. So, a provocative question, if you will. And so, one very simple one is, I love to end most of my workshops with, what is one step you can take to move closer to your goal? For example, that's a powerful question. If I ask you, what is one thing that would make a huge impact if you got it done this week? That's a powerful question, right? It's something that moves you to action. So when you have a barrier in your brain, a powerful question can help you clear that barrier, pass over that barrier. And then when you're at a standstill, it helps you move to action. Great. And if you have something else, another powerful question that you love, please share it in the chat. I love questions. So a coaching culture can bring a lot to your organization. So it helps build leadership skills. It helps promote a blame-free culture. Because imagine if we are coaching the problems early, when there's a new task, a new project, a new boss, a new anything, then we're preventing a lot of the problems before they happen. Not only that, we're coming in, we're training ourselves to be inquisitive. And so the conversations are exploratory and supportive rather than blaming. So again, it's constructive and not critical. We're encouraging high performance efforts. And again, the data shows that. We're increasing employee satisfaction and retention. The data also shows that. We're improving relationships, removing barriers, empowering. Someone walks away feeling very empowered and ready to tackle their issue. And then we would be equipping our managers and supervisors if we're sharing this across our organization. So the key takeaways from this is that, it's so important that we walk into a coaching conversation with an authentic growth mindset in which we believe that somebody can improve and change. We're building that trust. We're utilizing and stretching our emotional intelligence. And we are really building effective communication with our teams. So again, the coaching conversation sequence with the GROW model is to define the goal, clarify the reality, explore the options, and select the way forward with agreement and energy. And throughout, depending on how early we're coaching versus how late into problems that we're coaching, we would balance questions versus how much we're sharing and telling, right? So early stages, it's going to be more of those powerful questions. Late stages, it's going to be more towards corrective action. Again, we got to remember to address the whole person. We bring our whole self to every conversation, and we need to utilize that emotional intelligence to address those personal needs and then foster a coaching culture. So I know that we're sort of towards the end of this presentation. One thing that I would like to offer that is not in the slides is some tips for giving that more difficult feedback. Say that we're down the line with some problems, and it's time for us to be really direct. So the SBI model has been around for a long time. If you've ever heard of that, it's the situation, behavior, impact. So it's basically calling awareness to, in this situation, I witnessed you behaving this way and it caused this impact. So, for example, in today's team meeting, I saw you talking over your colleague and it caused her to withdraw and it caused some tension and awkwardness in the meeting. So, but once we've called awareness then to the behavior, we have to go back and then tell them what better behaviors look like. Instead, if you had allowed each member of the team to contribute their ideas and then given your rebuttals to the ideas, we could have had a more productive conversation without people withdrawing. So you would go through the behavior that you witnessed and then what would a better behavior look like? So that is a really great direct feedback model. And with the feedback, it doesn't remove grow, it doesn't trump grow, it can be embedded in there in that reality phase. So after we talked about the goal of the conversation, we're clarifying the current reality is this is what I witnessed. And then you can ask them ownership questions. Did you notice that your team member withdrew from the meeting? Did you notice that you were interrupting your team member? I'm not trying to be passive aggressive, so make sure that you're not doing that, but see if they can bring some awareness, right, to it and some ownership to it. And then it can be, what do you think you could have done differently for a different impact? So if you're familiar with DDI, which I'm certified in, it's Developmental Dimensions International. They are actually the people who came out with STAR. If you use STAR interviews, that DDI was the firm that founded the STAR interview. So they repackage the SBI into the STAR model for feedback. Works the exact same way. In this situation or task, the S and the T, in this situation or task, you acted this way. This was the action I saw you take, and it resulted in this. So it's the SBI repackaged into situation, task, action, result. In this situation or task, you acted this way. It gave this result. Instead, if you had acted this way, we could have had a better result. So it is another way to say the same thing of giving direct awareness to the behaviors, talking about how better behaviors can lead to better results. Any questions on direct feedback? I think it's very important to give clear and precise observations and make sure that they know what good looks like.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate it. Before we get into the Q&A section of the webinar, I just wanted to speak really briefly about VirgilHR for those of you who haven't heard of us yet. So I mentioned earlier in the webinar that VirgilHR is an employment and labor law compliance software. When I was managing an HR team, we were hiring in a lot of states very quickly, and it was so hard tracking and complying with employment and labor laws, particularly at the state and local level. And so I wanted to figure out how we could automate a lot of these processes. So we have a chatbot that provides attorney-backed guidance, and it goes beyond just attorney-backed guidance. It's all attorney developed in-house. We have tasks. So I love the tasks feature actually. It's automated task feature that essentially, let's say, for example, Kentucky increases their minimum wage. We would remind you, hey, the minimum wage needs to change on October 1st. But we would also remind you that there's a certain poster and notice that needs to be provided to your employees in Kentucky. We provide a digital copy to you with those due dates. We also have a legal library where you can search through different articles that we have. We have thousands of articles in there. Our resources, we have over 700 policy templates. You can also upload or create your own policies in the tool as well. We have legal agreement templates, tons of forms, our webinars, posters, etc. So really great tools in there. A multi-state comparison tool, our handbook builder, and then we have certain tools like calculators, a compliance audit, learning management system with hundreds of training courses, including all mandatory compliance courses as well, and a salary benchmarking tool. So a lot of really great features. The last one is you can also contact somebody on our legal team if you have the subscription for that. So if you're interested in learning more about Virgil, please feel free to scan this QR code for a demo. Before we get into questions, Sarah, do you briefly want to share some information about your consulting services?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So with Purposed HR, I love to do leadership workshops. I can utilize DISC, five behaviors of a team, and various assessments to help leaders really unlock their blind spots. And I do culture reviews as well as just some general HR advisory. And then if you scan the QR code on the screen, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you.
All right, great. So some questions have come through. Thank you, Shalimar. That's very nice feedback. In terms of slides, the slides are proprietary to Sarah, but we will be sending the video recording to you. So if you'd like to take notes off the recording, you're welcome to do so. One question that came through, Sarah, are there any tips for teams that are 100% remote to help with coaching?
Mm, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I think that the rules for remote teams are still the grow model would look the same. It would look like check-in meetings and making sure that they're feeling good about things. I think sometimes in a always remote relationship, it takes a little extra to show empathy and authenticity, but it just takes a little more intentionality. So it's a wonderful question. I think that for all remote teams, you just have to have some team building where people get comfortable with each other. Some types of meetings and practices that let people feel like they are ready to be coached by their peers and the people that they work with. So just take some intentional planning, I think. Yeah. And
Um,
so somebody asked if I could share a cheat sheet of these feedback models. And yes, I actually do have one. And if you want to connect with me and message me, I can just send it over or provide it to Jocelyn.
Before we continue, our SHRM recertification code for 1 hour credit is right here, 26QPHQN. All right, we have a couple more minutes left. So here's a very specific situation. How do we handle a situation where a manager that lacks emotional intelligence and ability to regulate herself to not only provide feedback, but also work well with a particular employee that she feels uncomfortable? The manager and employee have different communication styles and ways they process. The manager is more avoidant, private, guarded, has a hard time articulating her feelings. The other employee is direct, open, transparent, open, and able to have difficult conversations. I would say this is a perfect opportunity where this manager should be coached. The characteristics that you've shared about this person being avoidant, private, guarded, doesn't lend well to them being able to coach effectively. So they should really have a coach that can work with them on this type of issue. And I'd say too, maybe even a mentor, somebody who's experienced this in the past themselves and has overcome it, could be really helpful for that individual long term as well. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that that a coach is the best way to handle this. And I mentioned DISC and five behaviors a team. I do really believe in the power of an assessment to unlock someone's blind spots, and help them realize how they may be perceived by others. I think that sometimes it takes someone that maybe doesn't work directly in the company to help them unlock those spots, and then seeing it in a report, and what their innate inclinations are and how they can stretch into other emotional intelligence can really be powerful. So it is, to Jocelyn's point, it's just going to take some intentional coaching.
Yeah, I'd say too that we talked earlier about coaching eventually turning into disciplinary action if it wasn't successful. And I'd argue that, a manager needs to be able to coach. That's one of their jobs. If they can't, maybe they shouldn't be a manager. So it's possible that you might, depending on how the coaching goes, you might have to take them through the disciplinary process on performance because that's just a quality that they have to have. You can't have a manager who's avoidant. How are their employees supposed to perform? How are they supposed to be held accountable? So you'll want to consider that as well as you go through that process. There's another question here. I don't understand it though. It's from Barbara. So Barbara, if you wouldn't mind reframing this question, that'd be great. How do you get the Shram newspaper? I'm not quite sure what that means, but I didn't want to ignore the question. So if you'd like to rephrase that in the next minute or so, that'd be great. Otherwise, thank you everybody so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. You'll be receiving this recording in the next few days. Feel free to reach out to Sarah. Please feel free to reach out to me as well, either by email or LinkedIn, and we're happy to provide any additional guidance we can.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn and VirgilHR, for having me and for everyone for participating.
Yep. All right. Thanks. Take care.